webinar presented by Airlangga Hubs. Introduce myself. My name is Rizky Hanan and will be your moderator for today's webinar. Brief information regarding Airlangga Hubs. Airlangga Hubs is an Indonesian cultural center sponsored by Universitas Airlangga. The center is dedicated to promoting mobility programs between universities. The goal of Airlangga Hubs is to foster international collaboration and exchange between academic institutions, allowing students and faculty from different countries, especially from MENA regions, to work together and learn from one another. Before we start the webinar, there is some rules the participant need to be aware of. First thing first is to shut off your microphone when the speaker giving the session. Second is for the question you can write down on the chat section and the moderator will be distribute the question to the speaker at the Q&A session. Lastly, please be on camera, and while be on camera, please behaving appropriately. Briefly about the webinar itself, the purpose of this webinar is to giving information about Indonesia in general and the career opportunity that we have in Indonesia. Combine those by learning Indonesian language will be helping the audience to advance their careers in the future. So I will share my screen to show you about the agenda for this webinar. Okay, this is the agenda that will be happen in this webinar. The first thing first is the opening by MC, and the time duration is 5 minutes. And the next one will be next to the first session, Indonesia, an overview. This will be delivered by Professor Diah Ariani Arimbi, and also including a Q&A session. And the second one is career in Indonesia. This session will be delivered by Lydia Puspahati, included Q&A session. And the third one, the duration is 10 minutes, is a special message by Airlangga Hubs. And the last one is closing and photo. Okay, so let's move on to the first session about Indonesia, an overview. The speaker for this session is Professor Diah Ariani Arimbi, BA, MA, PhD. Short profile of her is Professor Diah Ariani Arimbi, currently working in Universitas Airlangga as lecturer in English Department of Faculty of Humanity and Head of Language and Multicultural Center. Her latest education is Doctor of Philosophy or PhD from Women's and Gender Study, Faculty of Art and Social Science in University of South Wales, Sydney, Australia, back in 2006. And her latest achievement back in 2017 as Indonesia Education Leadership Award presented by the CMO Asia. Professor Diah, the room is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mas Rizky Hanan. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, because I know all of you are coming from different time zones. Actually, at the moment, I'm in New York City. So it's morning here, which is completely halfway around the world in Surabaya, UNER, at Airlangga University, which is in the evening, yeah, so the 12 hours difference. Okay, so Mas Rizky Hanan already introduced me, so it's my pleasure and I feel honored to be in this room today to speak with you about Indonesia and overview of Indonesia, because I have only 30 minutes, including question and answer. So I would like to start with sharing my screen. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I hope that you can all read my slides here. It's about a little bit of about Indonesia because obviously I cannot share everything about Indonesia in 30 minutes. It's just highlights and the glimpse of what Indonesia look like. Yeah, I'm from the Faculty of Humanities. Mas Rizky Hanan already mentioned about it. So if you have a, if you look at the map, or if you have a chance to look at the map, you know this is the map of Indonesia. So Indonesia is actually the hub, yeah, of the Southeast Asian region. So it's in between Australia and also Asia. So that's why, and it is also known as the biggest archipelago, yeah. So it's always question about culture and the peoples of Indonesia, whether is Indonesia plural or is it multicultural society? Because if you see that we have a lot of things going on here at the same time, yeah. So in terms of geographical location, it's between Southeast Asia and Australia. Population is around 230 millions, 200 to 250 millions. Yeah. The official language is Indonesian language, or we call it in our own Indonesian language as Bahasa Indonesia. Bahasa means language and Indonesia is the name of the country. We have a national anthem, yeah, we call it the Great Indonesia or Indonesia Raya. And then this is the number of the ethnic diversities in Indonesia. Yeah, you have mostly Javanese, like me, I'm Javanese. Those who born and live and ethnically Javanese live in the island of Java. You have Sundanese, Madurese, Minangkabau, Betawi, Bukiso, a lot, right? Number of islands, we have more than 17,000 islands, mostly uninhabited, right? Because mostly Indonesians live in a bigger island, the 5 bigger islands. And then ethnic groups, more than 300 ethnic groups with different ethnic identities and characteristics. This is according to Hildred Geertz and Indonesianist, yeah. And then local language, more than 700 local language with the different dialects. So most Indonesians are bilingual, like me, and most of Indonesian are bilingual because we are born with our mother tongue, and when we go to school, we learn our official language, yeah. Okay, so that's why I said that, you know, in many ways, Indonesia is very plural and multicultural. We have a lot of things going on at the same time. For example, yeah, the Indonesian cuisine, yeah, it's similar to the Southeast Asian cuisine, yeah, is usually richly flavored with spices, herbs, and other seasoning, and it's guaranteed to awaken your taste buds, and also have influences from a lot of places. Like you have here on the right, this is we call it martaba, so it's Middle Eastern influence. You have here chapjai, it's the Chinese influence. And then you have here Selat Solo, that's the influence of the Dutch, because Indonesia was colonized by the Dutch, and it was called the Dutch East Indies for more than 300 years. Yeah, I'll talk about that later. Yeah, okay. Okay, why it doesn't go? Okay, here. Okay, so according, as I said earlier, according Van Vollenhoven, this is the biggest ethnic groups in Indonesia. You have actually more than 300, but this one are just some examples. Yeah. Even in Java, in the island of Java, and in Surabaya, you have several different ethnics. Yeah. Okay, here in Indonesia, we have also different kind of laws. Yeah, we have civil laws, we have also customary laws, and you have also religious laws. So if as Indonesians, we are bounded with the civil laws, but based on your ethnicity, we're bounded with the customary law, and then based on the religions, we have religious law. Like, because I'm Muslims, I'm bounded with three kind of laws, which is customary law as a Javanese Muslim, and Islamic law because I'm Muslim, and the civil law because of I'm Indonesian. And usually customary law or religious law are working in the private sphere, not in public sphere. Yeah. So private matters are usually within the domain of religious and customary law, like marriage, for example, inheritance, for example. Yeah. But legal things or even civil matters are in the domain of civil law. Okay, so this is according to Jaspan. So we have more than 300 ethnics in terms of languages, areas, culture, societal structure. So you have Sumatra, the Java, Kalimantan, Sulawesi. So number of lot, yeah, more than 300 ethnicities. Yeah, so here an example of this. Some of these ethnicities in terms of the customary clothes, yeah, the custom. So for example, they are wearing completely different clothing, the customs into their ethnicity. Yeah. And then Indonesian also, we have 4 pillars in Indonesia, which is in terms of state-wise, we have Pancasila, that's the 5 principles, and then we have this Undang-Undang Dasar, the law of 1945, that's the foundation of this country, and then the idea of United Indonesia, and then sovereign Indonesia, and the last is our motto, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Bhinneka means many or diverse. Tunggal Ika, Tunggal means one, Ika means one. So unity in diversity. Yeah. So these are the 4 pillars of nationhood. Yeah. According to the parliaments, according to the politics, according to the states, there are 4 pillars in terms of nationhood. The 5 principles, we call it Pancasila, the foundation of Indonesia in terms of the law, 1945 law, and then the sovereign Indonesia and unity in diversity, because as I said earlier, Indonesia is diverse. Yeah, whenever if you are in Indonesia, people don't call you Indonesian because it's going to be confusing. So usually they ask you where you're from, what is your ethnicity, because we have so many ethnic identities, and then not to mention when, for example, when a person has parents from different ethnicities. So, and then each ethnicity have specific languages, local languages, custom, belief, and everything. Yeah. So this is the Pancasila that I mentioned earlier, the very famous, not famous, very important in statehood. Yeah, the first is believe in one and only God. Second is just and civilized humanity. The third is unity of Indonesia. The fourth is democracy. And the fifth is the social justice. So these are the symbol of Indonesia. The mythical bird named Garuda. Yeah. And these are the symbol of these 5 pillars. Yeah. And then this is the unity and diversity. Yeah. Okay. All right. So if you look at diverse Indonesia, it's not something that was born very recently. It has been there long time ago. Yeah. Because as I said earlier, geographically, Indonesia is a hub between Southeast Asia and Australia. So international trade is very, very common since a long time ago. So the idea of global Indonesia had been more than 1,000 years. Yeah, when the trade of silk, for example, or pepper, or the spices were common in the beginning of this 1000 BC. Yeah. So in the past, because Indonesia is majority water, you know, only 30% of what we are now know as Indonesia is land, 70% is water. So we are the seafarers, right? This is the old this is the old ship. It's now recreated by the Indonesian Naval Army as a symbol of seafaring, yeah, that happened in the past. Yeah. Okay, so as I said earlier, you have this hub, you know, so that's why we have Indonesia. Well, at the time was not called as Indonesia. Indonesia was born in 1945. At the time, the term was known as Nusantara. Yeah. So if you see that even in the 17th century, there was this kingdom, Buddhism and Hinduism kingdom, where people at that kingdom were adherents of Buddhism and Hinduism in the 17th century. And then the 8th century to the 10th century, you have in Java, Buddhism and Hinduism as well. If you want to know the evidence, you can go to Borobudur or Prambanan. Yeah, so you will see the temples, Buddhist temple and Hindu temple there in central Java. Yeah, but before here in Sriwijaya is in the island Sumatra. Yeah. Okay, and then we have also one of the biggest kingdom in the 13th century East Java called Majapahit, where the ideas of Indonesia now, then it's called Nusantara, was known. Yeah, so the idea of Nusantara was introduced introduced by this by the Duke of Gajah Mada. That's the name of the person. Yeah, now it's probably some sort of prime minister. Yeah. So if you see at this, the map showed the difference between Majapahit in the 13th century, just before, and then Indonesia now. Yeah, it's almost the same thing, right? Except the Irian or the Papua, the island of Papua. But during in the 13th century, Malaysia and Singapore were part of the Majapahit. Yeah. Okay. And then the coming of Nusantara, when the kingdom of Majapahit collapsed in the 1400s, there was a huge Islamization in Nusantara. It was done in stages from the coastal areas, through the number of processes, yeah, the convert of the native, mixed marriages, and the spread of the Sufism. Although Islam came to Indonesia even long before, even in the 7th century, there were already tombs, yeah, Islamic tombs in Sriwijaya. But the huge part of Islamization came after the collapse of the kingdom Majapahit in the 14th century. Okay, so so this is how Islam came, mostly from the and then go to this Sumatra, and after the collapse of the Majapahit kingdom was Hindu era at the same time. It was followed with the Islamic kingdoms after that, after the collapse of Majapahit. Yeah, that's why it's very common, right? You have the acculturations, so a mix between Islam, Hinduism, and Indigenous culture. So if you see the mosques, it's the mix between traditional, indigenous, or even modern mosques. Yeah. So these are the example of mosques. Like here is the mosque in Kudus, where you have still the significant architecture of Javanese, Hindu, or Buddha Javanese, and then cemetery as well. So all of this in terms of architecture, you will have a mix of cultures, right, that came to Nusantara and now Indonesia. All right, so as I said earlier, Nusantara it was colonized by the Dutch and the Japanese. Yeah, the Dutch, well, according to the official, started colonizing Nusantara from the 1800s, and then continued by the Japanese. But actually, before the Dutch, many parts of Nusantara were colonized by the private company called VOZ, the Dutch private company, from the 1600 to the 1800. Yeah. Okay, but officially, the Dutch colonization started in the Dutch colonization by the Dutch kingdom officially in 1800. During the colonization, the Dutch employed racial policy, where you have three kinds of classes. The highest is the whites or the colonial. The second classes is the foreign orientals, and then the third classes is the indigenous. Okay. And then you have all three kind of laws that, you know, still now we have the civil law, the customary law, and the religious law. But the colonization did not go without a fight of these Indonesians, of these indigenous. Yeah, in 1928, there was this the oath of the youth who pledged about what is now known as Indonesia. Yeah, the Indonesian language as a language of the Indonesia, and then one Indonesian as nation, and then nationhood, and also in terms of language, yeah, citizenship, nationhood, and language. So it was actually started in 1928. At that time, when Indonesia was colonized by the Dutch, it was called the Dutch East Indies. Yeah. Okay, after the Japanese colonization, you have this the first president, Sukarno, yeah, 1945 to 1967, and then Suharto, the second president, 1968 to 1998. And then during the Suharto, he built the idea of beautiful garden reflecting the diversity of Indonesia. Yeah, and then at the end of Suharto administration, well, there was this riot in 1998, huge one. It's part of the collapse of Suharto administration. So it was a dark history in our country, but these riots actually ended Suharto long oppression. Yeah, we call it well, during the Sukarno, we have the old order, the Suharto is the new order, and post-Suharto is the Reformation order. So you have the B.J. Habibie. He was actually the vice president of Suharto. When Suharto stepped down, he took his place as a president, where one of his most famous policy was liberalization of press and media, yeah, and then also abolishment of the racial division between indigenous or non-indigenous. Non-indigenous is usually the Chinese or foreign Orientals, yeah. And then continued by Abdurrahman Wahid. He was known as the father of multiculturalism because he reinstated the rights of the Indonesian Chinese to learn Mandarin, to speak Mandarin, even to celebrate Confucianism, so the Chinese New Year. So it was celebrated, and then Megawati Soekarno Putri, she's the daughter of the first president. She became president for 3 years, replacing Abdurrahman Wahid. So she declared Chinese New Year as the national holiday. So, and then you have Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, and then you have Joko Widodo, the president at the moment. So that's why in Indonesia you have a number of holidays. So the state recognized religions in terms of Islam, Catholicism, Christianity, yeah, and then Catholic and Protestantism, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. Okay, so if you see here in Surabaya, it's no problem. We have church and mosque site locating side by side. Even some of the Muslim here, they are helping people celebrating Christmas. Yeah, not only the Christian, but the Muslim also helping, making sure that Christmas is safe. So we work together hand in hand. Yeah. And then what is famous in Surabaya, we have also the idea of the pilgrimage, because it's one of the most famous Islamic quarter in Surabaya. Yeah, the Ampel quarter, or the Arabic quarter, Islam in Java came through the came with the spread of the 9 saints. Yeah, so Sunan Ampel, or the saint Ampel, was one of these 9 saints, a very famous figure. So a lot of people come to this place to pay a pilgrimage for him. Yeah. Okay, and then you have also Chinese mosque, yeah, in several places. And then also sometimes you will see churches at malls, very common here in Indonesia until now. Well, stopped during the pandemic, but it has started again. Yeah. So we have also a number of the places of worship. You have this vihara, the Hindus, or even the Buddhist temple or the Confucianist temple. There was this one synagogue, but it was demolished because of the location. It was turned into a business building. Not to mention that, as I mentioned earlier, that we have also beliefs, indigenous belief in Indonesia, in Surabaya, in Java. So more than hundreds of indigenous beliefs or indigenous religions. For example, the religions of the Diah, the indigenous people of the Kalimantan. Yeah. So they have these indigenous religions. And even in Surabaya, you have also folk performance where the actors are transgender and transsexuals. This is some sort of folk drama. Yeah. All right. So geographically, Indonesia also plays within the ring of fire. So earthquake and the eruptions of the volcanoes are common. Yeah, we have recently volcanic eruptions and the earthquake. Yeah, as I said earlier, that in Indonesia we live varieties of traditionalism and modernisms at the same time. Yeah. So it's very common. You have traditional houses. Yeah, if you go from one place to another, in Java, for example, Joglo houses is very common. In Sumatra, also you have these traditional houses in Flores. Yeah. Also, you have traditional houses, yeah. And then also you have traditional rites. Yeah, as I said earlier, you have a mix of traditionalism and modernism. Yeah, traditional rites. If you go to the Mount Bromo in East Java, you will find in one time that people will make sacrifice to the mountains so that they can be safe. Community working together for some sort of celebration. Yeah. So these are these traditional rites. Okay, so traditionalism versus modernism is very common. So when you ask about what is Indonesian culture, so there is no Indonesian culture. What we have is Indonesian cultures. It's plural because people will ask you which culture and whose culture, because as I said earlier, you have a mix of more than 300 ethnicities. So I'm Javanese, so my culture is Javanese. But if someone is coming from the island of Celebes or Sulawesi, so he or she might be a Bugis. So it's varied, yeah. So if you go to metropolitan area, it's just like any other metropolitan cities in other part of the world. Yeah. So this is the Jakarta is the capital city. It houses around 10 million people. And then what we can say in Jakarta is traffic jam is very famous there. Because it has a lot of people where you can find skyscrapers, yeah, everywhere. And then so the capital city is Jakarta. It's located here on the coastal of eastern part of Java. Sorry, western part of Java. Yeah, Jakarta is on the western part of Java, while Surabaya is in the eastern part of Java. Okay, and then Universitas Airlangga is located at the Surabaya, the capital of East Java. It's the second biggest city in Indonesia, and this is a symbol of the city. You have this one is the hero monuments, because in 1945 there was a battle for independence in Surabaya that took the lives of, how do you say, hundreds of thousands of people against the Dutch colonization. Yeah. Okay. Okay, just like Surabaya is the second biggest city in Indonesia, so in terms of traffic jam, it's not as worse as Jakarta, but still you will find traffic jams. Yeah. Okay. Rural areas also, like, although statistically more people live in the urban areas, but rural areas also common in Indonesia, where you have the nature. Yeah. And then you have also plantations. Many plantations were actually established during the Dutch colonizations, but we have also new plantation as well. For example, coffee plantation, tea plantations, sugar, all kinds of plantations. Yeah. Okay, so this is this nature that usually famous places to visit. Yeah. For example, as I mentioned earlier, the Mount Bromo in East Java, and then there is snow in Indonesia if you go to Papua, and the Kartens, the peak, Kartens Peak in the Jayawijaya Mountains. You have these beaches, of course, because we are archipelago. One of the famous places is Raja Ampat in Papua. And if you go to Bali, or not only in Bali, but in Java and other places in Indonesia, you have also the rice fields, the paddy fields, layered paddy fields. And then you have also the lakes, very famous in Lombok, yeah, that change gradually. Okay. So I think this is from me. So I'm more than happy to answer questions if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Diah, for the session. It's really insightful regarding about Indonesia. So in here there is some couple of the question. There is a question from Wat Hadi. The question is, why isn't Surabaya become the capital city of Indonesia?
Well, historically, it's Jakarta. It was the capital city of the Dutch East Indies. At that time, it was named Batavia. But then when the colonization ended, the Indonesian government still decides to use Jakarta, or was Batavia, as the capital city. In the next 5 years, the capital city will move to the island of Kalimantan, to Borneo. It will be known as Nusantara. So at the moment, the central government is building the new capital city because Jakarta is, I don't know, too much thing going on there, right? So if you visit Indonesia in the next 5 years, the capital city will be moved to, we call it the Nusantara, capital city Nusantara. Why isn't Surabaya? Because historically, Surabaya has never been known as the capital city, even during the colonization. So that's why, because Jakarta was the center of the trade at that time.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Prof. Diah. And the last question there is from Naif Akbas. The question is, how the Chinese style mosque come to Indonesia?
Okay, thank you. Both are great questions. I think, as you said, as I said earlier, that we have this mixture of and influences of other cultures, and then you know that many parts of China, mainland China, or many parts of China, there are Muslim there. Yeah. So one of the Chinese Muslim that came to Nusantara before the colonization was the Admiral Cheng Ho. Yeah, he was a Muslim, and he brought his people to Java. At that time, he started with the capital city of Central Java called Semarang. So if you are in Semarang, you could see the remains of what Admiral Cheng Ho has left there. So that's why, because Cheng Ho was a Chinese Muslim, and then even in Indonesia, you have many Chinese Muslims there. So there are mosques with the taste of Chinese in Indonesia. So it's actually that's the influence of the Admiral Cheng Ho.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Professor Diah. So I think that's it for this session, and thank you so much for your session, Professor Diah. There is so much insight we learned from the session. Okay, now let's move to the next session about the career in Indonesia, and will be delivered by Lydia Puspahati. Currently, she is working in SEVIMA as the talent acquisition specialist. Her latest leadership experience as a local head of talent management in ISEC Surabaya back in 2021, and her latest education as a Bachelor of Design in Universitas Surabaya back in 2020. Miss Lydia, the room is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Hanan, for the introduction. So I will share my screen before I start in a minute. Okay, so hello everyone. So today I will talk about the career in Indonesia for the learning Indonesian language to excel in your career. So before we started, let's get to know me. So my name is Lydia Puspahati. Let me see to zoom. Okay, so my name is Lydia Puspahati. If you are wondering, yes, I'm a fashion design graduate. So currently I'm working as a talent acquisition at SEVIMA. So if you are wondering why are me as the fashion design graduate we're working in HR. So basically I have ISEC journey. If you don't know ISEC, it is an international organization, and I was responsible for talent management my whole life in ISEC. So for the last role, I was the national team for ISEC Indonesia as well. So that's the background story of me. So yeah, by the way, if I'm talking too fast, please let me know, because sometimes I didn't even realize it. Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about is Indonesia's data on each industry. I got this source from the government statistic. So here's the data. So by employment, it is actually the agriculture that is leading in the industry. This is because the Indonesia is actually an agricultural country. So that is why the government focus is more to agriculture. This affects the industry and it has been growing rapidly over the years, following the retail, manufacturing, construction, and the most recent industry that is currently growing is financial service, mining, IT, and electricity. And based on the investment that is for the industry itself, for the agriculture, it is growth 2.8%. It may not seem a lot, but for the agriculture industry, it's actually a lot to grow for 2.8, because usually they only grow for like a half, 0.5 or 0.6 over the year. So growing 2.8 is actually a lot for them. Following the infrastructure, petrochemical, healthcare, and the most recent growth in Indonesia is actually fintech, because there are a lot of fintech industry that is currently growing here in Indonesia. This is because of the trend that is currently happening in Indonesia, where a lot of people use payment gateway, so it affecting fintech as well. And this is the summary of the data that I show you guys. So following the data of the global growth rate, which is more focused on the tech part, Indonesia's industries is also affected. So by the data, we can see that Indonesia, for the IT industry, grows rapidly, which is shown by the fintech companies, growth rate despite the fact that agriculture is still leading for the industry. It is because of the COVID-19 situation, where the government changed their focus to agricultural sector to protect the national food security. This decision was made back in 2020 and still going on until up right now. So they're planning to protect the national food security, if I'm not mistaken, until 2025. And based on the data that we got, this is the conclusion that we can get for the industry mapping that is currently grow based on the opportunity and also growth. So the first industry is IT industry. The second one is agriculture, healthcare, and energy and oils. The reason behind it is I will show you. This is the reason why. Based on the data that I showed you earlier, yes, that agriculture is the leading sector, but it is because of the government focus. But based on the data and the trend for among the youth, it is actually the growth of fintech that is currently leading. It is 78% over the years. It is because globally the IoT, cybersecurity, and IT application, many industries have shown that the IT industry is actually growing. And with this number, it creates an opportunity for us, not only Indonesian, but also to foreigners who wants to work here in Indonesia. You can work on the IT industry, since there are a lot of IT companies right now. And a recruiter like it is true that actually IT industry is one of the growing industry. Me as for right now, I'm working in the IT industry as well. I'm working as a recruiter in one of the IT software as a service company. So it proves that actually the IT industry is very very famous among the youth as well, not only for the like older generation, but among the youth. Okay, so for the agriculture, there are two of the companies that I know that are currently growing. It's called eFishery and Jala. So based on the research that a private foundation held, the future of agriculture is actually agricultural technology. So which combines the agricultural and tech. And currently there are 26 deals around Indonesia for the agriculture tech company and raised more than $165 million. So agricultural sector will always increase in the growth rate because it is also supported with the growth of the biotechnology. In Indonesia, the agriculture sector usually use the biotechnology to support their company. It's actually growing here in Indonesia more than ever. And if you want to work agriculture sector, it is really suggested that you need to work in Jakarta rather than Surabaya because most of the HQ are there in Jakarta. But if you want to work on the creative side, you might want to work in Bali or Surabaya because there are a lot of agencies here and there. So if you want to work in agriculture, working in Surabaya might not be the highly suggested city. And this is due to the COVID-19 situation, but both globally and locally, the healthcare is growing massively over the years. It is supported by the digital healthcare that got popular back in the COVID-19 situation because a lot of people couldn't go outside, and telemeds have been 38% over the years from the 2020 until up right now. This creates an opportunity for you if you want to work in the healthcare industry. It is a good opportunity for you to try. Actually, the healthcare is not only doctors or nurses. The healthcare industry is actually open for the IT background or for the creative background, and also consultant if you're in for sales or market. So for the health, and it is a nice opportunity for you here in Surabaya or in Jakarta. So you have a lot of you actually have a lot of options for the healthcare industry. Personally, I know most of the healthcare industry is actually based in Jakarta, but recently a lot of healthcare companies open up in Surabaya just because it is more accessible and it is more cheap by the human resources. So a lot of companies actually opens up here too. And yeah, this is the most common, frequently asked question to me as a recruiter about the energy and oils company. Yes, has been growth, 7.8 growth rate in Indonesia. But sadly, for the energy and oils, usually it's a public-owned sector. It is owned by the government, and they usually not open for a foreigner. But if you want to work in energy and oils, I highly suggest that you want to a private-owned sector rather than to public-owned, because usually, from what I know, private-owned company hires the foreigners, but it usually located in the rural area of Indonesia. It is located in Papua, from what I know, from right now for the energy oils, and it is quite far from the capital city of Indonesia. So if you want to work in energy and oils, I highly suggest you need to do your own research first before applying to the several companies, because usually they want to locate you to the rural area. If you are not a person who's adventurous and wants to live in the capital city, you might need to do some deep research. Okay, so following for the industrial growth, it's actually affecting the career development here in Indonesia. So it creates an opportunity for us, the growing industries in Indonesia, create many job opportunities for both foreigners and Indonesian. It allows people to unlock their potential better than before. It allows us to have more accessible opportunities. We didn't have a limited option again. So back then, we actually have a limited option when we want to work. It's either the private-owned company that is already big or established, or the public-owned company. So we didn't have a lot of option. But for right now, since the industry has grown as well, it creates many job opportunities. Working from remotely is now accessible, or working with is now a chance. So for the on-demand jobs that's currently happening in Indonesia, there are 3 sectors that I want to point out. The first one is tech, the second one is marketing, and the third one is consultant. For the tech, if you have a background in developers, product manager, UI UX designer, UI engineer, UX research, and you name it all, etc. You want to apply to many of the you might want to apply to tech roles. Many companies right now is actually open up for hiring foreigners too, but mostly it's for the HQ, which means you need to relocate to Jakarta rather than to Surabaya. And yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so for the market if you are from marketing background, you might want to apply to social media officer, graphic designer, talents, models. The reason why the marketing is currently growing in Indonesia, it is because people finally realize the power of the social media. So currently they're hiring social media officer that who needs a marketing background, a graphic designer, talents, models for a TikTok contents or Instagram content, copywriter, and etc. So it creates an opportunity for you if you are from the marketing background. So, but for marketing, usually you have a lot of choices. You can work from Surabaya, you can work from Jakarta, or the most common places for foreigners is actually Bali, because a lot of agencies are currently going there. So if you want to Bali, it is your chance to have a background in marketing. But if you have a background in finance or HR, actually you can become a consultant, not only in the public-owned company, but it's actually the private-owned, private sectors also hires a lot of financial consultant and HR consultant. For like me, I own a company. So I used to be a HR consultant in the company named Glints. I know that it's not an Indonesian company, it's actually a Singaporean company, but they do have an office here in Indonesia. So I was working as an HR consultant. So yes, it is common here among the youth that working as a consultant, and it's actually becoming quite a trend to work as a consultant. So if you have a background in finance or HR, it is a time for you to apply to several companies here in Indonesia. And this is the most common common question that comes from the foreigner to me about the culture in the workplace in Indonesia. It is probably quite different from what you know. So I'm trying my best to explain it to you. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so about the social hierarchy, Indonesians must call their superiors by the polite title. It is because we value etiquette in the workplace. Therefore, you must not call them by the first name basis, even if you are close to them. You can use a following polite title that you might want to remember. The first one is for older or senior male, you can use Pak or Pak. For example, if Rizky Hanan is my superior, I will call him Bapak Hanan, something like that. For older or senior female, you can use Ibu or Bu. For example, if I want to call a Prof, I will call her Ibu Diah, something like that. And for the male of similar age or older than you, but it's not your superior, for like a colleague, you can call them Mas and you can use the name. So for example, Mas Hanan. If you want to call the female of age, you can use, for example, if you want to call me, you can call me Mbak Lydia. And for someone of similar age, regardless of their gender, so it's actually more to the genderless space. It's called Kak. So if I want to call Hanan, I can call him Kak Hanan, something like that. So you might want to remember this pretty, it's a must actually to call them by the polite title. Okay, so for the conflict and manners in the workplace, many Indonesians are not used to with confrontation. It also settle a problem. You need to sit privately with them and address your concern because most of them are not good if you confront them in front of everyone else. Sometimes it is hard for them to process the conflict, and you might experience a different tones when they talk with you. But please don't get it too seriously, or it's we address a conflict for some of them. Usually you might need the help of the HR if the conflict has getting out of hand. You might ask the HR to settle it with your coworkers, and it's okay. It's pretty common here to ask the HR to do something like that. As for the manners, we always smile and nod our head slightly whenever we meet our coworkers. So something like that. When we meet our coworkers outside of the office. And if you are meeting them for a professional meeting, you cannot do the smile and nod situation, but it is best for you to offer a handshake to show them respect. and that you are willing to get to know them professionally. So handshake is very common here in Indonesia. So you might want to do do something like that. And here's the thing. Indonesian loves it when you say thank you to appreciate little things that they have done for you, or whenever whenever they try to help. So here in Indonesia, we really value etiquette, like I said before. So we try to help as many people as we can in the work environment. And it is also often for Indonesian to say sorry. So Indonesians say sorry a lot, even for a small mistake. And to deal with it, you can say something like, "Oh no, it's okay. I can deal with it." Or no, or something like, "Oh no, it's okay. It's not your fault." Something like that, just to make them feel better. Because I experienced this a lot too in my office. Like many of my coworkers or colleagues say sorry a lot, and I literally have to deal with it every day. And this is the working attire in Indonesia. That is an unwritten rule to wear a semi-formal attire when you're coming to the office, unless they are okay with you wearing a t-shirt. From my experience itself, in my office, it is okay for you to wear a t-shirt, but it is not okay for you to wear a short skirt or short, something like that. You can also wear trousers if you like to, but you cannot wear shorts, like shorts or short skirt. You can wear, if they don't have any written rule, you can wear a shirt and pants, and for women, you can wear, and they always expect you to wear something modest and not to tie in Indonesia because of the culture. And this is the most common question that I do you need to be able to speak in Indonesian? The answer is actually yes and no, but I suggested you to learn Indonesian language before coming to work here. Indonesian will feel appreciated when you try to learn our language. And also, you don't have any basic to Indonesian language, you might experience a language barrier since not many Indonesian has access to a good education here. It is best for you to apply to a course before applying for a job here in Indonesia. From what I know, owner has one, so you might want to search for a little courses before coming here in Indonesia. Even me, as an Indonesian who grows up with two languages, which is English and Indonesia, I sometimes experience a language barrier between me and my coworker. Sometimes whenever they use slang or Indonesian slang, I don't really get it. So I need to learn it every day for the Indonesian. Even me, I took a course in Indonesia just to make everything better with my coworkers. So if you don't have any basic Indonesian language, I suggest that you might want to apply for a course before coming here. Yes, and for the working hours itself, it's 7 working hours in one day or 40 working hours in 1 week for 6 working days in 1 week. So some of the companies will expect you to come to the office on the Saturday. So if so, you will work 7 hours per day. But if you don't have to come to the office on the weekend, it's 8 working hours in 1 day and 40 working hours in 1 week for 5 working days. And this is based on the law for a new law that has been going around since 2022, if I'm not mistaken, for the workers. So the government has a new law for the workers, and this happened. And for the working visa for foreigners, it's called Kitas. But I'm sorry, I don't really know about the price, because for what I know, every country has a different price range. So you might want to look for Kitas before you coming here, because you might really need it for if you want to work here in Indonesia. Even if you work remotely, you might need Kitas for if you want to work here. So I think that is all from me. If you have any questions, please do let me know. I will try my best to answer them all. And if you want to be friends with me, you can go to my LinkedIn page, and I will definitely accept you. Okay, so thank you for Hanan for inviting me. So yeah, Hanan.
Okay, thank you, Miss Lydia, for the session you are already deliver. And that's really insightful for me as Indonesian to learn a bit try to bring back what's going on, but the career opportunity in Indonesia. So there is some question. I have some question for you. There is, can you tell me about what is the tips that you really want to give to other people regarding a job opportunity? Like, where is the information regarding how to find a job opportunity in Indonesia? And can you tell me as well, like the general flow when you are applying a job opportunity in Indonesia? Thank you.
Okay, so if you want to look for an opportunity in Indonesia, it is best for you to apply through LinkedIn or JobStreet or Caliber, because those three website is pretty common here in Indonesia. Even my office is using them all. So you might want to use LinkedIn, JobStreet, and Caliber. And for the general flow of the recruitment process is usually you might need CV and cover letter for the job opportunity. When you apply, the HR will contact you to have a first initial call or the HR call. Well, it's that what we usually call. They will ask you to do an HR call. After HR call, some companies have the have this kind of rules to do a test or technical test before going on to the user interview. After the user interview is usually final interview, and that if everything goes well, you might get the offering letter. But if no, then you might want to search for another job opportunity.
Okay, that's really really informative. Thank you, Miss Lydia. And also there is one question from Naif Akbas. Is Surabaya is agriculture?
Okay, so actually Surabaya is more to the industrial city rather than the agriculture city, because usually the agriculture city is outside the Java island. It is usually located in if I'm not mistaken, it's usually located in Sulawesi, Sumatra, something like that. But no, actually Surabaya is more the industrial, but we do have a beach, but I don't think it's considered as the agriculture, because from what I know from for Surabaya, it is mostly industrial based.
Yeah, thank you for the answering the question, Miss Lydia. Okay, anyone want to ask the question before we move along to our next section? Okay. Okay, I think that's it for the question from the participant. And thank you so much for your session, Miss Lydia. There is learn for this session. Okay, so before we closing the webinar, there is a special message from Airlangga Hubs, and we'll doing the presentation for the special message from Airlangga Hubs. Okay, so in here we want to give you some information in here. One of our program in Universitas Airlangga, we call it Lingua, or Learning Indonesian Language at Universitas Airlangga. So about Lingua, Universitas Airlangga is inviting personnel from around the world to participate in its Lingua program, which offer interactive language learning and cultural exploration of Indonesian culture. Learning Indonesian language will help you to better understand and engage with Indonesia culture and business landscape. This program is designed for beginner and intermediate level learner and is conducted online. As the Miss Lydia already said before in the previous session, in here Lingua will be helping you to understand about Bahasa Indonesia from the beginner until intermediate. So you don't need to be worried about the finding a Bahasa Indonesia course. So the benefit of learning Bahasa Indonesia for professional is better understand and engage with your Indonesian client and colleague, become more effective and productive professional relationship with Indonesian, gain a competitive edge in the job market, and lastly, become a more attractive to employers looking to do business in Indonesia or with Indonesian partner. So about BIPA. So in here BIPA, Bahasa Indonesia bagi penutur asing, is a course designed by UNAS Airlangga, Pusat Bahasa and Multibudaya. This course consists of 4 levels, A1, A2, B1, and B2. Each level consists of 10 lessons. BIPA program is using Hebat online learning management system, Zoom, and other interactive apps to enhance to the language learning program. In here, as you can see, the course objective, like in A1, for example, you will understand and use familiar everyday expression and a basic phrase. And in A2, you will be able to understand sentence and frequently used expression in areas such as personal and family information. And in B1, you will be able to produce simple connected text on topics that are familiar or personal interest. And the B2 is, for example, you will be able to understand the main idea of complex text on the both concrete and abstract topics, including technical discussion. So before you are starting the course, the Universitas Airlangga will be doing a test for you if you are understand a bit of the Bahasa Indonesia or Indonesian language. So in there, you will be designated to which one of the level it's it. But of course, the starting point, the lowest one is A1. But if you are already done some of the course before taking the Lingua program, you might be placed in B1. And here there is the course syllabus. In A1 is about, of course, this is the lowest one, because the lowest one will be giving the introduction and also describing people, hobby, daily activity, job and workplace, and etc. Something like for beginner. And also in A2 will be more progressive, like a season, job profession, public facility, buy and sell, and etc. And in the B1 is more intermediate. Will be about Indonesian geography, Indonesian climate and weather, traditional and popular music in Indonesia, and tourism object, cultural event, and etc. And the B2 itself will be like profession, letter from a reader, historical site, media and news, and tourism, folklore, environment, and etc. So how to apply? First thing first is you can sign up at the global.uner.ac.id/lingua. In there, the second one, you require document like CV, motivation letter, and copy of passport, official ID, your official ID or student card. But this program is not present in Indonesia, so you can like put your official ID, your ID card in the website. And the next one is most recent photo. Make sure in the red or white or blue background, and also scan English provisions for non-English native speaker. The deadline application is January 20th, 2023. So better catch up. Take your professional skill to the next level with Indonesian Language Province. So in here, in global.uner.ac.id/lingua, and you can email for further question at erlanggahubs@global.uner.ac.id. And also this program is the tuition fee is fully waived, so basically it's free of charge. So you just need to sign up, and also you will be attend the program at 31st January of 2023. Okay, so that's it for today's webinar. We learned a ton of Indonesia and the career opportunity in Indonesia. We hope this webinar will bring you a new insight for your future plan. Before we finish, we want to Yes, of course. Regarding for the question from Hizam Al Awa, yes, you can take the course from A1 to B. Okay, for the question regarding the lingua, I will contact you, or you can ask via email that you are already received at the email regarding about the webinar. Oh yeah, and also we are really thankful for the speakers, Professor Diah, Ariani, and also Miss Lydia Puspahati for attending this webinar, because this is our very first webinar from Airlangga Hub. So we are really thankful for the speakers and also for the participants who are joining this webinar. We are really thankful because this is our very first webinar. So hopefully this is bring some insight and also some information for your future planning. And also, before we finish, we want to inform you that we will keep inform you about opportunity that is available in UNES Airlangga throughout your email. If you have further question about UNES Airlangga program or Lingua program, feel free to contact us throughout email and our social media at Instagram at Airlangga Hubs. You can contact them right away. And also one more thing, we want to take a picture before we are closing this webinar. So guys, can you please open your camera so we can doing a picture before we closing this webinar. Okay, okay, everyone, let's go. All right. Okay, from Hamza, Zahra Munir, Wasan Abdo, and Muad Hadi, please on your camera. Okay, I want to take a picture right now, so please giving us the best pose. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and okay, one more. Okay, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, and okay. Okay, so that's it for our today's webinar. We are really thankful from Airlangga Hubs and also to the speakers. Thank you very much. So I hope in the future we can meet again for the webinar or maybe another opportunity in the future. So thank you very much and have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, good luck to all of you. Bye. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.